Was wir heute an menschlicher Kultur, an Ergebnissen von Kunst, Wissenschaft und Technik,
all the human culture, all the results of art, science, and technology that we see before us today are almost exclusively the creative product of the Aryan. This very fact admits of the not unfounded inference that he alone was the founder of all higher humanity, therefore representing the prototype of all that we understand by the word man.
Ist der Prometheus der Menschheit.
The Aryan is the Prometheus of mankind. The role of the strongest is to dominate and not to blend with the weakest, thus sacrificing his own grandeur. History establishes with frightful evidence that whenever the Aryan has mixed his blood with that of inferior peoples, the result of this interbreeding has been the ruin of the civilizing people. It must not be forgotten that the supreme goal of men's existence is not the conservation of a state, it is the conservation of their race.
When Adolf Hitler became Chancellor of Germany in 1933, his book Mein Kampf, My Combat, became the political horizon of the Third Reich. The racist ideas expressed in this book were quickly transformed into a series of concrete measures obsessively applied at every level of the state. Intellectuals, scientists, and most particularly the medical profession played a decisive role in the Nazi racial policy. From the beginning, the doctors were at the service of racial purification. Starting in 1937 with the sterilization of half-caste children known as the Bastards of Rhineland, and then in 1938 and 39 with Operation T4, the selection and mass murder of several tens of thousands of the mentally ill. Later, the doctors did not hesitate to use prisoners in several concentration camps as guinea pigs. In Sachsenhausen, Dachau, Buchenwald, Struthof-Natzwiller, Neuengamme, Ravensbrück, to mention only these camps, medical experiments for essentially military purposes were performed in vivo, meaning on living prisoners. At the summit of this policy of dehumanization, Auschwitz. Here, the whole process of destruction and extermination is placed under the control of the doctors. It is the doctors who select those who are to die and those who will live in order to work or serve as guinea pigs. Furthermore, unlike the medical experimentation performed in the other camps, the Auschwitz doctors indulge in two types of medical experiments aimed at the supremacy of the Aryan race. On the one hand, the sterilization of women and men to prevent the proliferation of the European people said to be of inferior race. And on the other hand, with Dr. Mengele and his experiments on twins, they tried to penetrate the secrets of genetics in order to multiply the Aryan race.
Sehr verehrter Reichsführer, anliegend überreiche ich Ihnen mit der Bitte um Kenntnisnahme das Ergebnis der Untersuchungen über die Möglichkeit einer Röntgensterilisation bzw. Kastration.
Dear Reichsführer, I am sending you herewith the results of research on the possibility of sterilization and castration by X-rays. The experiments in this field are concluded. The following results have been obtained. They are sure and scientific. For people who have to be permanently sterilized, it is necessary to apply X-ray treatments so intense that castration, with all its consequences, results. In fact, the strong doses of X-rays destroy the internal secretions of the ovaries and the testicles alike. Weaker doses would only suspend sexual potency temporarily. The dosage can be obtained in several ways, and the treatment carried out without the subject being aware of it. For men, the irradiation source needs a power of 500 to 600 Roentgens. For women, 350 Roentgens. In principle, with maximum intensity and a minimum breadth of the filter, 2 minutes of exposure for men and 3 minutes for women should be sufficient. In practice, a method emerges. This would be, for example, to summon the people to be treated to a window and have them fill in forms or answer questions, thus keeping them there for 2 or 3 minutes. The official seated behind the window could adjust the machine, moving a lever to operate both tubes at the same time. Irradiation must be bilateral. In this way, a device with 2 tubes could sterilize 150 to 200 people per day, and with some 20 such devices, 3,000 to 4,000 per day. To my knowledge, no deportations of a greater number of people per day are envisaged.
I was a prisoner for a year, that is to say from the 2nd of August 1943 in Block 10 at Auschwitz. The only women's block isolated in the middle of the men's camp. From the first night I had the feeling, and I still have it, of having been transferred to an establishment that was equally something of a hell and something of a madhouse. No one could in fact know from the outside what exactly happened in there. The windows were boarded up with nailed planks so that it was impossible to communicate with the outside, and especially with the male prisoners. Our prison neighbored on Block 11, the execution block, in the court of which twice a week, tens of prisoners of both sexes were shot by firing squad. We were shut inside 2 large rooms where 400 women packed in 3-tiered beds were vegetating rather than living. The atmosphere of anguish in which these 400 women were living was rendered even more painful by apprehension about the many surgical experiments to which they had to submit.
From March to July 1943, the block held up to 500 guinea pigs, all Jewish women of diverse nationalities, French, Belgian, Greek, Slovakian, Dutch, etc. The convoys were generally selected at once by the SS doctors as the prisoners got off the train, and the chosen victims directed to the block in question. Depending on their type of experiments, these gentlemen did their shopping. Some needed married women, others young girls. The third group a mixture of all categories.
They did not know precisely the nature of the tests they were destined for, but they were perfectly aware that they were going to serve as guinea pigs, with the terrible certainty that once used, they would be sent to the extermination camps where the crematoriums awaited them. There existed, in fact, in Block 10 some teams of scientists. The main ones were those of Professor Schumann, Professors Klauberg and Goebel, Doctors Wirtz and Weber, to cite only those I was able to see at close hand.
One of the most lamentable experiments was sterilization by X-rays. It concerned very young girls, mostly Greek, delicate creatures of 16 to 18 years old. The operation was not done in Block 10 itself. They were taken to the women's camp in Birkenau, where the necessary machines were.
Professor Schumann's method consisted in first applying X-rays to the lower abdomen, that is to say, the internal genital organs. After some of these applications, an ovariectomy was practiced, sometimes bilateral, sometimes unilateral. In the latter case, the second ovary was removed by another laparotomy sometime later. These operations were performed by doctors who were prisoners, such as Dr. Samuel, well known for the zeal he displayed. The second person who operated was the Polish surgeon Düring, also an internee. He did an enormous number of operations, and while I was in Block 10, he beat the record one day by performing 10 laparotomies in an afternoon.
Every time the poor girls came back in the evening with symptoms of peritonitis, they vomited incessantly and had ghastly pains. And this lasted days and days, weeks, even months. They had to lie in bed and could hardly eat. Many showed serious burns on the abdomen, burns that needed long-term dressings. It was the intestines in particular that had been affected by the rays. There were deaths. There were complications. Pleurisy, prolonged, endless amounts of pus. The operations were accelerated more and more. The parts removed, placed in recipients with formalin. They were taken away by the SS doctor and never heard of again.
In March 1943, the rumor spread that the Jews were being sterilized by X-rays. I did not want to believe such atrocities, but I was forced to yield to the facts when about 2 weeks later they announced the visit of Professor Schumann. I personally had the exceptional honor of being presented to him, and he told me that he wished to put in our department in Block 12 40 prisoners being treated under him without telling us what it was about. He asked me to make an observation sheet for each one of them, to take their temperatures and pulses twice a day and observe the changes that they might show. I observed only a slight rash on the scrotum. These prisoners told me they had been taken to the women's camp. There, their testicles had been exposed to a machine through which an electric current was passed. From the description, one recognized an X-ray machine. From week to week, they came to get several who were taken to Auschwitz. On their return, they told me that sperm had been taken from them by a brutal massage of the prostate. Two months later, they were taken back to the Auschwitz camp, and when they returned, after 1 or 2 weeks, they told me that one testicle had been removed. Many of them died within a short time, morally and physically exhausted. They were forced to return to work, which finished them. Those who survived were taken back 2 months later to Auschwitz for the second testicle to be removed. These operations were performed by a Polish surgeon, Dr. Döring, himself an internee, in the presence of Professor Schumann and an SS doctor, Dr. Entress. This surgeon operated with quite considerable brutality. The patients received a hasty local anesthetic. Their screams were terrible to hear. Often both testicles were removed at once. The consequences of the operations were catastrophic. Hemorrhages, septicemia, atony of the wounds which would never heal. Many of these guinea pigs died quickly from the after effects of the surgery.
We drive about 12 minutes in the labyrinth of barbed wire fences and enter through well-guarded doors, passing from one zone to another. Only now do I realize the immense extent of the Konzentrationslager. Few are those who have the possibility of seeing this, for most die at the very place they have been directed to on their arrival. My musings are abruptly interrupted by Dr. Mengele. Without turning around, "It's not a sanatorium I'm taking you to, but your living conditions will not be too bad," he says. The car slows down and hoots. In the barbed wire fence, a reinforced door opens behind the guard. We enter, and in front of us is a spacious courtyard, clean and covered with green grass. Gravel paths and the shade of fir trees would make it almost pleasant if there were not on the far side of the yard a large red brick building and the huge chimney belching out fire. We are in one of the crematoriums. Is the room ready? Dr. Mengele asks the SS guard who accompanies us. The latter answers in the affirmative, and we go there at once. He enters. I follow him. We are in a place that has been freshly whitewashed. The men of the Sonderkommando have painted this room and furnished it with objects left behind by previous convoys. From here, we follow a dark corridor to another room. We are in a dissecting room. Very light, with 2 windows and the most modern type of equipment. The floor is of red concrete. In the middle of the room, on a concrete base, stands a polished marble dissecting table, equipped with several drains. By the table is installed a water basin with nickel-plated taps. On the wall, 3 porcelain sinks. The light green walls have been painted with oil-based paint. The large mesh-covered windows are fitted with green metal screens against flies and mosquitoes. We leave the dissecting room and go into the next one. This is the workroom. It contains antique-style furniture and paintings. In the middle of the room, a large table covered with green fabric. All around, comfortable armchairs. I count 3 microscopes on the table. In a corner, a large bookcase full of medical books, including the most recent editions. Another cupboard contains white coats, aprons, towels, and rubber gloves. All in all, it's an exact copy of the Anatomopathology Institute of a big modern city. As soon as the convoys arrive, soldiers walk around the ranks in front of the wagons in search of twins and dwarves. The mothers hope for preferential treatment and willingly hand over their twin children. Adult twins know they are interesting from the scientific point of view. Hoping for better conditions, they come forward voluntarily. It is the same for dwarves. They are separated and all directed to the right. They are left with their civilian clothes. Guards take them into huts specially allotted to them, and they are treated with some consideration. The food is good, the bunks comfortable. Hygiene is possible, and they are well treated. They are in Block F, Hut 14, from where the supervisors take them into the Gypsy Camp experimentation hut. This is where they undergo all the medical examinations that can be practiced on the living. Blood tests, lumbar punctures, exchanges of blood between twin brothers, as well as innumerable other examinations, all tiring and depressing. Dina, the painter from Prague, does the comparative drawings of the skulls, ear speculums, noses, mouths, hands, and feet of twins. Each drawing is classified in the file prepared for this purpose, with individual characteristics added. And here will also be placed the reports on the findings of the research. The same process is used with dwarves. These experiments, in medical terms, in vivo, that is to say, experiments conducted on a living being, far from exhaust all the possibilities of research in the field of twinning. They are full of deficiencies and give only insufficient results. The phase of in vivo research will be followed by the most important phase in the study of twinning: the comparative study of anatomical and anatomopathological aspects. The subject here is the comparison between healthy organs and organs that function abnormally, or twins' diseases. For this study, as for all studies of anatomopathology, corpses are required. Since dissection is necessary for the simultaneous appraisal of abnormalities, the twins must die at the same time. Thus, they die in one of the Konzentrationslagers huts at Auschwitz, in quarter B3, and by the hand of Dr. Mengele.
Königsschute, 7 June, 1943. To the Reichsfuhrer, Herr Heinrich Himmler, Berlin. Most honored Reichsfuhrer, today I fulfill the duty I have taken upon myself, that of keeping you informed of my research from time to time. The method invented by myself for sterilizing the female organism without operating is almost completely finalized. It is carried out by means of a single injection at the mouth of the uterus and can be done during an ordinary gynecological examination known to any doctor. When I say the method is almost finalized, I mean 1. That certain improvements remain to be worked out. 2. That it can already be used instead of our current eugenic sterilization operations and be substituted for the latter. Concerning the question you asked me nearly a year ago, namely what would be the length of time necessary for the sterilization of about 1,000 women in this way, I can reply approximately today. A practiced doctor with the necessary installation and about 10 assistants, the number of these depending on the acceleration desired, will in all probability be able to sterilize several hundred, if not 1,000 women per day.
Professor Klauberg, a civilian doctor, who was a gynecologist from Königsschutte, today Katowice in Upper Silesia, reigned supreme over a group of 200 married women and concentrated his research on a special process of female sterilization. Aided by his health assistant SS Oberscharführer Biening, and later by his collaborator Dr. Goebel, a civilian, he injected an opaque liquid, the composition of which I don't exactly know, into the uterus of these women in order to seal up the tubes. As soon as these injections were finished, an X-ray of the uterus and the tubes gave him a very clear picture of the extent and location of the sealing liquid injected.
Some suffered horribly, others less, but they all feared these sessions tremendously.
These injections were repeated on the same women 3, 4, or 5 times within a few weeks. They were most often followed by peritoneal reactions, fever, vomiting, etc. All these women naturally had total amenorrhea, but it is very difficult to take this menstrual deficiency into account, given that menstruation had totally disappeared among the women prisoners.
Some women were detained longer in Block 10, while others, the experiments scarcely finished, had to return to the Birkenau camp, where they were subjected to work that quickly destroyed them. Many women prisoners felt in a way more protected from this horrible prospect by remaining in Block 10. Incapable of entirely comprehending the unfathomable depths of their torturers' monstrosities, they trusted in the latter's words of reassurance and preferred this mode of execution, which saved their lives only in appearance.
The head capo of the Sonderkommando comes to see me and announces that an SS soldier is waiting for me at the crematorium door with a commando of corpse transporters. I go to find them. They are forbidden to enter the yard. I take the documents regarding these corpses from the hands of the SS. The commando, composed of women, lays the covered stretcher in front of me. I lift the blanket. It conceals 2 little twin brothers, 2 years old. I order my men to transport the bodies and put them on the dissecting table. I open the file and leaf through it. Exhaustive clinical tests, together with X-ray photos, descriptions, and artists' drawings, note from the scientific point of view diverse aspects of the twinning of the two little beings. Only the anatomopathology observations are lacking. I am given the task of doing these. The two little twins died at the same time and lie side by side on the large dissecting table. It is they who, by their death, with their small bodies offered up for dissection, are to solve the mystery of the multiplication of the race.
SS Dr. Wirtz, the camp's head doctor, looked into the more or less inflamed cervixes for the early signs of cancerous degeneration and engaged in the excision of part of the cervix of married women after colposcopy and radiology.
The examination was first done in the natural state. Then reactants such as acetic acid and an iodized compound were applied by palpation on the vaginal portion of the cervix. The parts showing a change in the mucous membrane reacted to the first palpation by turning a whitish color and remained insensitive to the second. If the cases were doubtful, one had to act as with confirmed cases. If the examination was regarded as positive, one had to proceed to a limited amputation of the vaginal portion of the cervix and reconstruct the opening with plastic surgery. The parts were sent to a laboratory in Munich.
These operations were performed under narcosis by Evipan and were most frequently followed by serious hemorrhages due to the flawed technique.
The women were really considered as nothing but cattle.
When the camp of Auschwitz was liberated by the Russian armies, Captain Kunin, head of the interpreting service, gave me the job of translating into Russian 5 letters found in a cellar among archives. These 5 letters came from the firm of Bayer. They were dated April and May 1943. First letter. With a view to experimenting a soporific, would it be possible for you to place at our disposal a few women, and under what conditions? All the formalities regarding the transfer of these women will be carried out by us. Second letter. We acknowledge receipt of your letter. Considering the price of 200 marks excessive, we offer 170 marks per subject. We would need 150 women. Third letter. We agree to the price. Please therefore prepare a batch of 150 healthy women that we shall send for very shortly. Fourth letter. We are in possession of the batch of 150 women. Your choice is satisfactory, although the subjects have become very thin and weak. We will keep you informed of the results of the experiments. Fifth letter. The experiments have not been conclusive. The subjects are dead. We will write to you soon to ask you to prepare another batch.
Dr. Mengele stands at my side for hours, amid the microscopes, sterilizers, and test tubes. Or else standing, hours at a time, at the dissecting table, in a blood-stained white coat, his hands covered in blood, examining and searching like one possessed. The immediate objective is the multiplication of the German race. The final objective being the production of pure Germans, sufficiently numerous to replace the Czech, Hungarian, and Polish peoples condemned to destruction on the territory declared a vital space of the Third Reich and temporarily inhabited by these peoples. I finish dissecting the little twins and write up a dissection report according to the rules. I have done my work well, and it seems my chief is pleased with me. He reads my handwriting in capital letters with some difficulty, so I point out that if he wants clean, neat reports, I would need a typewriter, as I am used to that. He inquires about the make of machine I am used to. Olympia Elite, I tell him. Very well, I'm going to send you a typewriter. You will receive it tomorrow. I want clean work, as it will be passed on to the Berlin Dahlem Institute of Biological, Racial, and Evolution Research. In this way, I learn that the research carried out here is controlled at the highest level of the medical profession in one of the world's most renowned scientific institutes. The parts that might interest the Berlin Dahlem Institute of Anthropology have to be preserved in alcohol. These are specially packed, so they can be dispatched by post. Stamped war material, urgent. They have the benefit of fast priority transport. During my activity at the crematorium, I dispatched an impressive number of similar parcels. I received, in reply, precise scientific observations or else instructions. The directors of the Berlin Dahlem Institute always expressed their warm thanks to Dr. Mengele for this precious and rare material.
My assistant, Dr. Mengele, Doctor of Medicine and PhD, holds the position of Hauptsturmführer and also of camp doctor in the Auschwitz concentration camp. With the authorization of the Reichsführer SS, are carried out on the most varied racial groups in this concentration camp. The blood samples are sent to my laboratory for analysis.
I receive more corpses of twins. 4 pairs are brought to me from the gypsy camp. They are twins under 10 years old. I have finished dissecting a pair of twins. In the outer walls of the left ventricle is a small pale red spot caused by the prick of a needle, hardly different from the surrounding color. I can't be mistaken. The prick has been done with a very fine needle. I open the heart, starting with the ventricle. Usually, the blood in the left ventricle is removed with a spoon and weighed. This procedure cannot be applied here, as the blood has coagulated into a compact mass. I stir the clot with the forceps and lift it to my nose to smell it. I am struck by the characteristic odor of chloroform. He has been given a chloroform injection in the heart so that the blood in the ventricle clots and forms a deposit on the valves, causing instant death by cardiac arrest. My knees shake, for I have discovered the most monstrous secret of the medical science of the Third Reich. It is not only by gas that they kill, but also by chloroform injections in the heart. Scarcely a few days ago, I was sitting with the Obersturmführer Dr. Mengele in the workroom near the table. We were leafing through the files already made on the twins, when on the light blue cover of a file, he noticed a pale spot of grease. During dissections, I often handle files, and this is how it came to be stained with a little grease. Dr. Mengele gave me a disapproving look and said in the most serious tone, "How can you act in such a careless way with these files that I have gathered with so much love?" It was the word love that had come from the lips of Dr. Mengele.
Victor Brack was sentenced to death in 1947 at the doctor's trial Nuremberg. He was executed in 1948. Edward Wirtz was arrested by the British Army at the end of the war. He committed suicide in his cell in September 1945. Karl Klauberg was sentenced to 25 years imprisonment by the Soviets in 1948. Thanks to the Germano-Soviet agreements on the repatriation of prisoners, he was released in 1955. Following a complaint against him, he was arrested again, but, being ill, he died before his trial in the Kiel prison hospital in Germany in 1957. Horst Schumann practiced as a doctor under an assumed name after the war. It was not until 1951 that legal action was taken against him. He then fled to the Sudan, where he directed a hospital, then to Nigeria, Libya, and Ghana. Extradited to Germany, his trial began in 1970, but he was released in 1972 on grounds of ill health. He died in Frankfurt in 1983. Josef Mengele fled to Latin America. Thanks to the complicity he enjoyed, Mengele was never captured by the different teams sent on his tail. He lived in Argentina, Paraguay, and Brazil, where he died in 1979. Baron Ottmar von Verschwer claimed in his trial to know nothing of Auschwitz or the work of Mengele. He was fined 600 marks by the Frankfurt Tribunal as a Mitlaufer, a fellow traveler of the Nazi Party. In 1956, he became a member of the prestigious American Eugenics Society and directed the Institute of Human Genetics of the University of Münster in Germany until 1968. He died in 1969. Several directors of IG Farben were given prison sentences ranging from 6 months to 6 years at the Nuremberg trial. The IG Farben consortium, of which the Bayer laboratories were one of the companies, was broken up in 1951 into several separate companies including Bayer, Hecht, BASF, and Agfa. The Bayer pharmaceutical laboratories have not been prosecuted.